Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle, the entire PNW, the Pacific Northwest, and today we're extending to the other Washington area. You'll learn more about that in a minute. Look, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you've come to the right place. This here is the podcast for you. It's where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and back-to-back weeks, my co-host is Craig Swanson. Our guest today is Erik Pelton. I'm very excited. Get ready to protect and elevate your brand. Erik Pelton is an expert in intellectual property protection. He's a seasoned trademark attorney with over 20 years of experience and more than 4,000 trademarks registered, including a few for yours truly. Erik has represented hundreds of clients in trademark disputes and published a book, Building a Bold Brand, as well as many articles and videos on trademark topics and his Tricks of the Trademark podcast. And most importantly for me, he helped me get Captain Jack trademarked as Unleashed. We'll talk a little bit more about that too. Erik's here to share his insights on making trademark protection accessible and affordable for businesses of all sizes. Erik, welcome. Glad you can make it today. We'll be with you in just a minute. You can find us, everyone, wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, and of course, for Craig, Overcast. We are ubiquitous. And now we are open for business with our patron membership, the Shrimp Peelers, offering exclusive content to grow your business and enrich your life. You'll find access to our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Now, before we bring on Erik, hello there, Craig. Happy day after 4th of July.
Hello, Dan. Happy day after the 4th of July to you as well.
Did your neighborhood sound like a minefield?
It did all week, all day. We kept having pops and explosions and all sorts of things happening around our place.
So I don't know if you know this. Erik comes to us from Falls Church, Virginia, and I've been in that area before, and there are a lot of Civil War. I went to visit Manassas, which is not far away. It felt like there were cannon fodder all over the place. I don't know, Craig, if you have dogs in the house, but when John Adams famously told everybody that this should be an occasion to go out and do fireworks all over the place. I don't know if he had a dog. Do you have a dog at home?
I don't have a dog at home. We've got a lot of neighbor dogs.
A lot of neighbor. They did not probably have fun last night.
No, they did not have fun.
Yeah, Bella, who's 18 and usually doesn't hear that stuff, she had to climb into bed with us last night. She was a little bit on edge. Captain Jack used to want to fight him. I mean, and he hated he hated fireworks. He wasn't scared of them. He wanted to fight him. And I thought this might be a good segue to introduce Erik, because Erik didn't ever meet Captain Jack personally, but he is the reason that we have a couple, registered trademarks specifically with Unleashed, which is Captain Jack. So Craig, I want to introduce you to my good friend out of Falls Church, Virginia, Erik Pelton, who helped Captain Jack and I become Unleashed, and a couple other trademarks. Erik, welcome. Are you ready to share with us some of your great knowledge about trademarks and branding?
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you guys today.
Why don't you start, Erik, by telling us a little bit about what you do? So somebody listening to this, small business owner, entrepreneur, says, I don't have anything to trademark. I'm just, I sell paint or whatever it is they do. Tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're able to help everybody from the solo entrepreneur to small business to mid-sized business.
That's right. That's right. I get to work with businesses and entrepreneurs every single day, and it makes my job so enjoyable and fun. And the way that we work with these businesses is to help them build and protect their brands. Of course, for many, many businesses, nearly all of them, their brand name, their logo, maybe slogan, are some of the most valuable assets that any business can have. So I'm an attorney. run a small law firm, Erik Pelton and Associates. And what we do is help deal with the legal issues for protecting brands and dealing with disputes when they come up for brands.
I am really fascinated by this subject. I have had a number of small businesses, and I would say in the last couple of years have worked with a number of businesses that have gotten into trademarking things as we go along. So I've had just a teeny tiny bit of experience around this. And I'm kind of wondering where do I want to start? I mean, ultimately, I want to ask, like, what's the cost? Where does this stuff come into play with small businesses? Let me maybe start there. Like, if I'm a small business and I've got a brand identity, I've got a few other things that I feel like I want to protect, but I'm a little bit uncertain how valuable that is to me or how much I want to fight for it, because obviously it becomes more valuable when I start to lose it. But before I lose it, what does it cost to protect something like this, or what's the process look like?
Important question, of course. First, I would flip the question a little bit and say, imagine the costs if your brand was not protected and somebody else was infringing it or copying it, and the stress, the time, the legal fees that could incur could be many, many, many thousands of dollars. So to protect it costs some money, yes, but for a few $1,000s, you can protect your brand, the core elements of your brand, no problem generally. And having a protectable and strong brand actually begins even before the legal process. It begins when you come up with the brand name, right? And coming up with a name that is creative and unique in the industry is really the most important step, because boring or bland or descriptive names are very, very hard to protect and therefore more challenging, more expensive, and all of those things.
And in reality, it's funny. It's more simple than I think people would think. And I'll use me as an example, Erik, and I've known you for a long time, but even before I hired you as my trademark attorney, but I knew to call you because I had started putting together the brand Unleashed based off Captain Jack. I started using it for business, business seminars and speaking and business classes and things around around business issues. And I'm a little tongue tied. I can't remember everything that it said, but basically business stuff. And we talked about it. It's like everybody uses the word unleashed. My University of Washington Huskies are unleashing the dogs all the time. But we found out that the name Unleashed, or the word Unleashed, was not trademarked for the things I wanted to use it for. And so with a little simple search, we figured that out. I paid some money, and I've had that trademark for a long time now. And I apologize for talking so much, but I think this is important. A few years later, I had a client who was going to a conference, school-related conference, school industry, and there was a speaker there, and the title of their speech on leadership was Unleashed. And she got a hold of me and said, I don't think this is you. I said, yes. So I called Erik, and he said, the simplest way is to get a hold of this guy. And just long story short, the guy who has other registered trademarks completely backed off, understood completely, changed the name, did everything. Had I not had that in place, I couldn't do that. So that was a long-winded story, Erik, but I want you to kind of talk a little bit now about that. For a small business, that even something as simple as that is incredibly valuable to your brand.
That's right. You were able to ensure that your brand stayed strong and stayed unique by dealing with that conflict. And that conflict was so much easier to deal with because you had the registration. It made it an open and shut case, essentially, which saves you time and money and stress. And to go back to your other point about Unleashed, of course, is used by others in other contexts. What's important for a brand is to be unique in your industry and your field. So, common example, Delta Airlines, one of the most successful travel companies, right? Delta Faucets, one of the most successful bathroom appliance companies. They have nothing to do with each other. They both use the word Delta because those products and services are not intersecting. They have nothing to do with each other. But if I was going to start a car rental company and call it Delta, that's going to be probably close to Delta Airlines, too close to where they probably can't both coexist. So you want to make sure that you're unique in your industry, and a strong, bold name like Delta, like Unleashed, sets you off on such a stronger foundation.
In a case like that, where you find someone using a name that you have protected, where you've got the trademark, what levers do you have in protecting that? Now, and I assume sometimes it's just a simple conversation, just informing them that it is a protected item. But depending if they're big or if they want to push back a little bit, like how far have you seen these conflicts go?
Of course, they go to court sometimes, but relatively very few. But an important benefit of having a federal trademark registration is the ability to sue in a federal court for damages, potentially attorney's fees, potentially statutory damages, which raises the bar even higher. And so that threat is what helps resolve these things a very, very significant percentage of the time. So that's one of the many benefits of having the registration. Another important benefit of having a registration, like Dan knows, is you're in the database at the US Patent and Trademark Office. So other people might be sitting there any day at any moment coming up with ideas, and the first place they're hopefully checking is the USPTO register. So if somebody says, "Ooh, I've got a business training idea, we could call this course Unleashed," and they search on their own or they talk to a trademark attorney, they would hopefully find Dan's registration, and that other user changes course, and we never know about it. That's the beauty of having the registration, is that it does that work automatically.
So let's talk a little bit, if somebody's listening to this saying, what can be registered trademark? We've talked a little bit, we've talked about a name, especially if it's unique to that industry or to what you're doing. Logos can be registered trademark. What are some of the more popular things that somebody, might not think about? Even things like sayings or subtitles, things like that, and books. So talk a little bit about what can and can't be registered trademark.
So names, not just for the entire business, but different product or service lines, if there are sub businesses or sub brands, can each be their own trademarks. Logos, when you have a great design, like I'm looking at the shrimp tank logo on your icons with the creative weave between a light bulb and a microphone, right? That's creative. That's a type of design that could generally be registered. Slogans, which can convey a little bit more meaning, sometimes a little bit more depth about what a product or what a service is, can also be registered. Then there's a lot of other fun things that can be registered, because anything that differentiates the source of the product or services. So it could be a jingle. It could be a uniform design. Did you know that UPS actually has the color brown registered for delivery services?
No.
Their trucks are brown.
Yeah.
Their uniforms are brown, right? They used to use the slogan, "What can brown do for you?" They use the color consistently throughout their services, and they actually have the color registered. T-Mobile has the color magenta registered in a similar manner. The New York Yankees actually have their pinstripe uniforms registered. Certain building designs can be registered, or product shapes, like a lot of alcoholic beverages now, behind the bar come in fancy design, or perfumes also similar, come in very ornate bottle packaging. Those things can be registered. So anything that differentiates the source.
Well, and I just sent you, I read your newsletter. I love your newsletter because it gives me great idea. I saw something on Twitter recently. As Craig knows, I'm a golf nerd. And there was a story on Twitter that Phil Mickelson was being sued. I don't remember who it was, but that his live golf team, I think the High Flyers, their logo was too close or too similar or too something to somebody else. And I sent that to you. And I think you like getting those because you can use them.
Right.
Those types, that's where this becomes really important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when they have that kind of money on the line, investing in the golf tour like that, you would think that they've done their homework and know what the risks are. But there's different levels of risk and there's different levels of homework. But any small business should at least be cognizant of these ideas from the outset, because building your brand and your business on a solid foundation makes it so much easier as it grows.
Okay. So in terms of risk and investment, let's talk about like small businesses. Let's talk about like, smaller local businesses or a couple different branches. What level of protection do you think is appropriate? How valuable should a mark be before we invest the money in it? And I'm thinking about, say, a restaurant that might have an overall brand, and then they have a bunch of names for individual recipes or individual products that they're providing.
Yeah.
Do we go through the entire list to try to get everything? Do we just focus on the top level? Like where would you advise an entrepreneur kind of making that judgment?
Excellent question. Top level for sure, right? The sort of metric that I use is how upset, or I might use another word, would you be if somebody forced you to change the name, right? So, okay, to change the name of like your special burger on your menu is not going to be a huge deal. But to change the name of the restaurant as a whole, and your signs that cost tens of thousands of dollars, and your website and your social media and all of that is going to be a huge pain. So if it's going to be a big deal and a huge pain, then it's definitely worth protecting. As the business grows and it becomes more valuable, and it maybe thinks about these things as assets in the long-term life of the business and possibly investment or sale and other things, then protecting those other things, become much more important. And the cost benefit ratio is fine. Once they're making a lot more money, it's a lot easier to justify spending on protecting those trademarks.
And now I want to do a quick follow-up, but if I'm an owner and the company name is my name, so I'm safe, right? If it's my name, I don't have to worry about it.
You're generally safer. It's a lot harder for somebody to take that from you.
Okay.
Craig, I'm glad I'm glad to know that you're safer with Craig Swanson. I bet there might be another one out there. So I don't know how many Dan Whedons there are, but you're probably okay there. Listen, here's where we have to be safe too. Erik, we got to pay the bills. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with Erik Pelton for a hot or not section of the show, we're going to find out what Erik thinks about the burgeoning world of AI. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small businesses beyond $1 million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're going to fill a rush of new orders, puzzling out where to find new customers, or sweating about making payroll. You find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business? At EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business so they can probably trademark it, right? This is more than theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs with top Seattle business leaders who have been where you are, volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because the hustle is only going to get you so far. The next level of success is a team sport. Want to hit $1 million in revenue? Join the club, EO Accelerator.
Hey, thank you, Dan, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we're interviewing the best and the brightest from the Greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Erik Pelton, and our next segment is Hot or Not.
So listen, Erik, Craig and I are now going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about trademarking, about a whole bunch of other things. Probably not Civil War monuments or battles, but you never know. We may get to that. And you're going to tell us whether the topic or the subject is hot or not, and then why or why not. And I'm afraid at the end you win absolutely nothing, but let's hope you have some fun with it. I mentioned going out into break AI, and AI, boy, I'll tell you what, I've been using it more, and it feels like in the last 3 months than I have in the last 30 years of being in business. So hot or not, AI, especially as it relates to trademarking.
AI is very hot in the world of law. Lots of talk about it, about what it can do, what its limitations are. And I've been toying with it myself. I actually built a little tool that helps people get answers to trademark questions. Doesn't give out legal advice, of course. But it really showed, I wanted to build this tool to explore the power and the limitations of AI.
That's really cool. Okay, hot or not, trademarking ideas in the early stage of coming up with the idea.
So you can't protect an idea, so trick question, but trademarking a name, a brand name, when you're in the early stages is hot. You want to apply as soon as possible.
So let me ask a question on that, because I remember I'm just going back in my memory banks to things that we had to do. I have trademarked. I'll just show off a little bit. I have Unleashed, and I have Emerging Risk Solutions, and I have the logo for Emerging Risk Solutions. I have all of those trademarked, and I had to show that I was using them in some form, or at least that's what I think our conversation was about. So I don't know how early on that was, but I had to show some proof that I was actually using them. How does that correlate with Craig's question?
You do have to show use eventually, but you do not have to show it when you apply.
Ah,
So if you're planning to launch something in 6 months from now, if you don't apply for the name during that 6 months, you're exposed. Somebody else could beat you to the name, basically. If you file based on intent to use right away, you have a safety net in the interim.
wow. Okay, that's good to know. I didn't realize that. So I'm deviating from hot or not for just a second, because I don't know how to phrase this in a hot or not way. You know, once I got the registered trademark, it was amazing how much mail, and I'm not talking email, I'm talking the snail mail, I got saying your brand, it's about to expire. Re-up right away. We're letting you know this is urgent. I mean, all of this stuff, and it looks pretty official. And I remember the very first, I called Erik and said, I'm thinking this is a bunch of junk. Am I right? And so I'm gonna let you answer how you answered.
Yeah, there are a ton of bogus scams that take the public information that is necessary when you apply for a trademark registration, and they generate these scams. They look and sound official. They sometimes use government seals and logos. It's really a terrible thing. We try to warn about it as much as we can, but unfortunately the scammers are hot.
So the one thing I'd say to that is, once you get this, and especially if they go through you, which they should, the only times you're going to get something really official from and I forget who it is, the U.S. Patent Office, or from you're going to actually send out. So whether they're working with you or somebody else, you only listen to your attorney.
That is another benefit of working with an attorney, to help filter out that communication.
Okay. I'm going to jump back to this idea phase. Coming up with the idea, planning on launching some things. Which is more important, hot or not, the .com or the trademark?
Oh, the trademark is definitely more important for many years. And at least that's what I've been preaching, because you can always find a domain name, whether it's xyzbrands.com or xyz-widgets.com. You can, and search engines are becoming so much more powerful every day, right? That the search engine knows what people are looking for. And the domain doesn't really matter so much. That's my take on it. More and more people are finding through social media, through links, they're not even typing a domain name into the top of the browser that often anymore.
So hot or not, Google alerts, and I'm thinking about kind of keeping tabs, putting your brand, especially your registered trademark, in under Google alerts.
Yeah, Google alerts are hot. It's a free tool to help monitor your brand, and monitoring is important because you want to know as quickly as possible if somebody is copying it. Generally, if you have to take action, the sooner the better, because the more time and money the other company invests in that name, the more reluctant they're going to be to part with it.
Hot or not, podcasting.
Podcasting, I love it. Hot. I've been doing it for 5 years. Tricks of the Trademark. I listen to podcasts when I'm walking the dog or driving the car. Yeah.
So I want you to expand both on your podcast, so people might pick it up and listen to it, because my first inclination, Erik, you're an interesting guy, but I have somebody thinking, oh, do I want to listen to a podcast from an attorney who's talking about trademarks? You do interesting things with it, though, and I want you to spend some time. And then I want you to expand on, you mentioned your AI tool and why somebody might, again, somebody who's a small business owner not thinking about it, why that would be of value to them. So can you expand on those two?
I'd love to. Thanks for the opportunity. So My podcast, again, called Tricks of the Trademark. You can find it on all the platforms. I talk every week, every Wednesday, new episode, something related to marketing, branding, trademark protection, or other intellectual property. I keep it at 3 to 4 minutes generally per episode. People don't want to listen to lawyers drone on. Believe me, I know I've had to hire lawyers on a couple of occasions. And, just fresh tips. And we tackle all of these things: social media, domain names, AI, all of these things, and how they intersect with the world of branding and intellectual property. Second part of your question, my AI tool, ChatTM, which anybody can use for free or play around with at chat-tm.com. I like to build things. I'm a technology geek. Like I think you guys might be also. And I like to know what everybody's doing and talking about, right? That's why I got into podcasting. That's why 10 plus years ago, I built an iPhone app. It's also very useful because it's what all these small businesses and entrepreneurs are doing or thinking about and talking about. So it helps me relate to them as a small business who's always trying to stay ahead of the game and market and develop content. So it really helps us as a firm relate to our clients and the things that they're dealing with also. So we built ChatTM on a platform that's available, and the platform uses ChatGPT. And we basically just trained it on my book, my podcasts by using the transcripts, my blog posts and articles. So it's trained on thousands of pieces of materials, and that's it. So it's only answering questions from an expert, basically. And what it's not doing is answering questions from the general internet, because that's where I get a lot more scared about AI. How do I know whether or not I can trust this answer? Is it fully true, 90% true, 73% true? I'm going to have to do some investigation to find out. And then maybe it's not really saving me time or energy anyways. But if you know it's a specifically trained resource that is an expert, then it becomes really, really powerful based on what I've seen.
That sounds really cool. We can't use that yet to search your archives of either your book or your podcast. Is that available on that chat experience?
So it's integrated into my website, so you can search all the archives through the website. You can actually also, this is useful, I found, for anytime you're asking ChatGPT or another AI tool a question, when it answers it, you can ask what's the source, and then it'll provide more information about what the source of that answer is. And I've found that to be really useful to help verify things.
All right, we're back to hot or not. Social media marketing as a way of generating clients for your business.
Well, I'm like lukewarm on that. I try hard. I don't get a lot of clients directly through social media, but I think it's really important that when people, either through referral or web search or whatever, are checking me out, validating me, it's important that I have that content there. And again, I like to be exploring things that clients and businesses are as well. So like we've gotten into making TikTok videos and reels also to try to stay one step ahead of the game. And the biggest success we've found in social media online marketing is YouTube and videos. I have a library of almost 500 videos that I've recorded over the years on our YouTube channel, and it gets tremendous traffic. And it's like the number one thing that people who cold call us or cold email us mention, because they get to see and hear my voice and see my face, and it helps build a rapport before we even connect.
So I'm again trying to put myself in the shoes of a small business owner, and I've just talked to enough of them who sometimes don't give themselves enough credit for what the intellectual property they have or the things that are important. Where have been some of the biggest challenges where, and you don't obviously have to name names, but where you've seen not protecting the trademark, where you've seen not doing this, where it's been painful because I deal in the world of insurance, and a lot of times you have to show some pain from somebody else before, you know, kind of it clicks in. I don't want that to happen to me. What are some pain points that you've seen for small businesses who haven't taken, you know, that step?
Yeah, it's that unfortunate no-win decision that they sometimes face if they have not protected their brand. A few years down the line, as they're hitting success and growth, then all of a sudden they come to the attention of a competitor who was using a similar name before them, and they get a nasty letter and a threat of a lawsuit. And now they're faced with either trying to defend a lawsuit that may, even if it is a good claim to defend, it's expensive. And if it's not a good claim to defend, then it's expensive and a big problem. Or changing the name, which is a big hassle and expense. And so it's really a no-win situation, unfortunately, when that happens. So the biggest problem we face is getting the message out. And that's why I like to appear on podcasts like this, where somebody's maybe wasn't necessarily researching how do I protect my trademark, but now they understand why it's possible. People find me all the time when they're researching, I need to protect my trademark. What should I do? It's the getting to the people who haven't yet thought about it or don't know they need to think about it. That is the toughest thing, because if more people protected their trademarks, the business world would just be a better place. Could there be less time and money spent on silly disputes?
You know, and you're saying that, I was originally going to ask as my follow-up for that, examples for wins that have come from companies, but I think I want to reflect on just what you had said earlier about avoiding disputes. It sounds like by having a trademark, just having it in place, disputes might be avoiding your circumstance that you're not even aware of from the way you're telling your stories.
That's right. Like I said, just appearing in that database of the US Patent and Trademark Office is huge. And actually, when somebody else applies for a registration, the US Patent and Trademark Office is searching their own database for conflicts. And so they could actually refuse somebody based on your registration. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to do anything. So it is a tremendous value. Again, having a registration also allows you to sue in federal court, also allows you to use the R with a circle, which helps warn people that this is protected and important and valuable, and many, many other benefits as well.
Well, one of the benefits that we have is we have the benefit of great sponsors. So we're going to take a second short break to hear from those sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Erik Pelton, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to talk about maybe what would his most crazy, unique, clever, unicorn, out of the box trademark he's ever worked on be. I'll let him think about that as we take a break. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our wonderful corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, PC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
All right. And welcome back to the Shrimp Tank with the best and the brightest from the Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Erik Pelton. For our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
We're turning up the heat, Erik. We're going to ask you some harder, maybe more fun questions. You're an attorney. You know what pleading the fifth means. What you don't know is you only get to do it once. So if you have to use that early, all bets are off. So choose wisely. But my guess is you're not a fair catcher. So here we go. You knew I had to ask it. With what you can share with us, because obviously there's privacy and all of that and client response, but with what you can share with us, what is the craziest, most clever, most out of the box, one that even made you go, wow, trademark you've worked on in all of the ones you've done?
One of the most interesting ones that stands out is from a client who was based in Tyler, Texas, and I got to go visit them actually. And they had a drive-through coffee shop, a small chain, and the drive-through was in the shape of a building with a cowboy hat on the top of the building. And we were able to register that shape of the cowboy hat top of the building as a trademark. And that was a really fun one.
That's pretty cool.
All right. I am curious in terms of on all your dealings, what are the biggest brands you've bumped up against while either protecting a client's trademark or defending a territory that a large brand may have wandered into without taking notice?
So we unfortunately have to deal with big companies on the other side all the time because they can be very aggressive and they oftentimes have a different interpretation of the scope of their protection. So I've had many disputes with many of the top biggest companies, Starbucks, Adidas, Microsoft. Gosh, I mean, so many. I tend to forget sometimes, but yeah, it happens all the time. They like to pick on small businesses. Unfortunately, the way our legal system is set up, big companies know that a small business, even if they have a good defense, is going to have to spend a lot of money to defend it. And the big businesses frequently leverage that to try to use it as an advantage. And it's really unfortunate. And I'd love to see some changes long-term in the judicial system, but we got a lot of things we need to fix. That's somewhere on the list of priorities.
But it is in a way, and I do have a follow-up question, but it is in a way, at least some protection for those small businesses against what would be looked at as the Goliaths of the world, that they're at least at some level, there's an opportunity to protect what you've created or developed yourself. And I think that's an important thing not to forget. So I know this is one of my favorite tests. I know you love and have a passion for what you do, Erik. But if I said you got to stop doing it and you got to start a new business based on a hobby, what is that new business? And by the way, if you could trademark something from it, what would it be? So what's the new business? What's the hobby? Maybe even what's the trademark?
Ooh, so I don't have a name for it yet. I guess I haven't dreamed about it quite enough. But I love live music. I love going to concerts, all types of music. I mean, a lot of rock and roll, but jazz, orchestra, you name it. I will go to a live music, whether it's at a huge arena or at the local coffee shop. Like I'm just blown away by the talent of live musicians. And I also love photography. So if I was not doing this, I would love to find a way to be a professional photographer who focuses on live music.
That sounds really cool. All right. And we can come up with a trademark for that before the hour's up. Yeah. All right. So just kind of more broadly, what would you say your business partners or co-attorneys or spouse would say you need to improve most about yourself? Mm-hmm.
Well, until very recently, I would say that I was overworked and overstressed. I've gotten a lot better about that. I've been giving more responsibility to my team. I had a hard time delegating. They've always been great, my team. I finally learned to rely on them even more. So I'm feeling much less stressed and less overworked. So that's good. I'm sure there's a lot of other things they would say I need to work on, but that's one that comes to mind.
So, in every industry, there's stuff that we all like, stuff that we don't. What do you like least and what do you like most about specifically the world of trademarks and law and all of that?
I don't like that, or I guess I like least that we are still entangled in the world of law and lawyers and law firms. And that has a lot of negative perceptions, and a lot of lawyers use way too much legalese and big words and long explanations and disclaimers. And we work really hard to try to combat that and fight against it and be different. What I like the most actually is what I said at the top of the show, really, is that I get to work with such a variety of creative and smart and successful businesses day in and day out, that like on any given day, I could be learning about and working with a software company, a real estate company, a consultant, an apparel company. And I get a little taste of all of it. And it makes it so interesting and exciting for me to see our clients succeed and grow in their respective fields.
And I think we're getting close to wrapping up. So I want to just kind of like looking back at your career and just everything you've done, who would you say has been the most influential in kind of setting the direction for you as the business you've run and lived so far?
Excuse me. So when I was younger and newer in this industry, this business, when I went out and started on my own law firm after working for the government, I really had no direct mentors. Unfortunately, I wasn't wise enough to realize the value of it at the time. Recently, I've developed a network of peers and colleagues in different industries and different types of law firms. But really, my inspiration has always been both of my grandfathers were entrepreneurs, very different types of entrepreneurs in different parts of the country. But I saw them, both the benefits and the challenges of running their own businesses later in their careers, obviously, when I got to spend more time with them. But it had really stuck with me, and throughout college and law school, I tried every type of job. I worked at corporations, nonprofits, law firms, courthouse, you name it. I tried like every experience, and I realized that like I've got that entrepreneurial bug inside of me. So this is the best of both worlds. I get to be an entrepreneur and help entrepreneurs. So it's perfect.
Really cool. All right, Erik, thank you for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that would like to be able to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing or try out your AI tool, where should they look you up?
Yeah, just look me up, erikpelton.com. I know I'm the only Erik Pelton with a K, ErikPelton, and the only Erik Pelton who does trademarks. If you just search, use the domain, you'll find me. It's not hard.
Absolutely. And then everybody, it's also going to be available at this show. All the links will be available at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And wherever you're listening to us, be it Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, or Overcast, please follow us on your podcast player of choice. And also check us out on YouTube with the Shrimp Tank on YouTube.
Indeed. And so, Erik, first of all, I want to thank you for being on the show. And I'm just going to give a really quick shout out because I've hired Erik twice. And we've got 3 logos or 3 trademarks from that. I've been incredibly happy. And in fact, what I didn't say is the Unleashed has been used twice. I needed it twice. I've had 2 situations in 6 years where it's come up, and Erik's been a huge help. And so please feel free to reach out to him because he is an absolute pros pro at what he does. Craig is a pros pro at podcasting. Well, I like that. I got a lot of alliteration there. The pros pro at podcasting. Craig, thanks for joining us. Everybody, our next live show will be Wednesday, July 12th at noon Pacific time. Our guest is Taffy Gallagher. I've known Taffy for a couple of years, and she just bought a brand new coffee shop called Viking Brew Coffee in Paulsbo. Linda Popke will be my co-host. We'll get to talk a little caffeine. In the meantime, be safe, be well, be prosperous, and get your important stuff registered, trademarked through Erik, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.